Hey, welcome back to the FAQ Shack. This is the show where we take your burning questions and turn them into deep dive explainers. Today, we've got a fantastic one from a listener, Alex from Ohio, who's led us down one of the strangest and most fascinating rabbit holes in the history of computing. A very bizarre, very biblical operating system called TempleOS.
So Alex writes, I stumbled upon this bizarre biblical operating system online. What is the real story behind TempleOS? And you know what? He is not kidding. Just look at this thing. This retro 16-color interface feels like a relic from a lost age of computing, right? But here's the thing. This is so much more than just some hobby project. The story behind it is just this incredible mix of technical genius, deep faith, and an immense personal struggle.
So what even is TempleOS? Well, at its very core, its creator truly believed he was building the literal third temple, the one prophesied in the Bible. And I mean that literally. This wasn't a metaphor or some kind of art project. He saw it as a digital sanctuary, a holy place built entirely out of code, designed for one specific purpose: to talk to God. The creator, a man named Terry Davis, often described it as a kind of modernized Commodore 64. He wanted to bring back that simple, direct feel of early computers where you could just mess around and have fun. But make no mistake, this was no retro throwback. It's a full-on 64-bit operating system with over 100,000 lines of code. And get this, it was all written from scratch by just one person. He eventually put it in the public domain, not for work or web browsing, but for what he called recreational programming. To really wrap your head around that achievement, you have to hear this quote. A computer engineer once compared it to one person building an entire skyscraper. I mean, think about it. Operating systems like Windows or macOS are built by thousands of engineers over decades. Davis built his entire digital universe. The kernel, the compiler, the graphics, everything, all by himself. It's just staggering.
Okay, so how in the world do you build a digital temple? Well, this is where things get really wild. The architectural choices behind TempleOS are what take it from just a curiosity to a truly unique, and I mean unique, piece of engineering.
Most modern computers have these layers of security called rings to keep programs from messing with the core of the system. Well, TempleOS, it just throws all of that out the window. Everything, and I mean everything, from the core system to the simplest game, runs in what's called Ring 0. It's like giving every single program the master key to the entire building. It's a totally radical design that's all about direct access and transparency, not security.
And these technical limitations, they weren't just random choices. Davis was adamant that they were divine instructions. That 640 by 480 resolution with only 16 colors? Apparently, God told him it was so children could easily draw pictures for him. Same with the single-voice audio and the complete lack of networking, those were direct commands. He even created his own custom file system, which he very cleverly named Red C.
So the whole thing is written in a programming language that Davis invented himself. He called it Holy C. Now, it's basically a version of the C language, but with one massive difference. In TempleOS, the command line is the compiler. You don't just type commands to run a program. You can type raw Holy C code right into the shell, and it's compiled and executed instantly. It totally blurs the line between using the operating system and programming.
And that unified idea is best shown by this brilliant system he created called DullDoc. Okay, so forget about having separate files for text and code and pictures. In TempleOS, it's all one integrated thing. You could literally embed hyperlinks, images, even spinning 3D models right inside your source code, and the system just understands it all. It's incredible. Now take a look at the file manager here. It seems super simple, right? Kind of like an old-school DOS prompt. But because it's built with that DullDoc system, every single thing you see on that screen, every file, every folder, is a clickable hyperlink. The entire operating system is basically one giant interconnected document. And here's a look under the hood. You can see the raw DullDoc commands right there. A user can just hit a key, Control-T, and instantly switch between this plain text view and the final formatted interactive document. There are no hidden layers. It is all completely, totally transparent. Now, this absolutely mind-blowing creation didn't just appear out of thin air. It came from the mind of one man, Terry A. Davis. And really, to understand TempleOS, you have to understand its brilliant and deeply troubled creator.
As you can see from this timeline, Terry Davis was a seriously skilled engineer. He had a master's degree, he worked at Ticketmaster on these really complex computer systems. But then in 1996, his life changed. He started having severe manic episodes and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. For the next decade, while battling this severe illness, he poured everything he had into coding this project, his life's work, before his tragic death in 2018.
And here he is, in his younger years, around 1990. A promising engineer, you know? It's important to see this picture, to remember the brilliant mind behind all of this, because his journey took a very different and much more difficult path.
Terry himself knew how people might see him. He once told a journalist this, and it's incredibly powerful. He said, "What people are going to read it's about a pathetic schizophrenic who made a crappy operating system. My perspective is, God said I made his temple." That quote right there just perfectly captures the heartbreaking divide between his own reality and how he knew the world would perceive him.
So that brings us to the big question. What is the legacy of TempleOS? How are we supposed to remember it? Is it a technical masterpiece? Is it a unique work of outsider art? Or is it a digital monument to a really tragic story? The truth is, it's probably all of the above.
And this is exactly what our listener Alex wrote back to us. He said, "It's an incredible achievement, but how do we separate the technical genius from the creator's mental illness?" And frankly, that is the central question. It's the challenge everyone faces when trying to understand TempleOS.
When you really look at it, you see this perfect duality. On the one hand, yeah, it's a technical masterpiece. One guy writing over 100,000 lines of code for an entire OS, that's just wild. But on the other hand, it's a profound piece of outsider art. It was never meant for the market. It was this deeply personal, deeply religious expression. It was the manifestation of one person's unwavering vision.
And in the end, Terry Davis just gave it all away. He placed TempleOS entirely in the public domain. No copyright, no restrictions. He didn't want money for it. He wanted people to explore it, to play with it, and maybe, just maybe, to use it the way he did, as a gateway to something bigger.
So there you have it, the real story behind TempleOS. And it's all thanks to that amazing question from Alex in Ohio. If you've got a complex topic you want us to tackle, please drop it in the comments below. We read every single one, and we love turning your curiosity into our next explainer.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The story of TempleOS is messy, it's complicated, and it really doesn't fit into any neat little box. It forces us to ask some pretty big questions. So we'll leave you with this one. What can this digital temple, built by a single visionary mind, teach us about that thin, often blurry line between genius, madness, and creation?